Yeah. So, like you said, like my trauma, while still significant, is different. There's not quite the parallels that yours and Brittany's has. The the TLDR version of it is that when I was around 9 or 10, my mother was diagnosed with brain cancer. And I grew up in a family. There's mom and dad, me. I was the oldest. I had two younger sisters. I have two younger sisters, and they are 3 and 6 years younger than me, respectively. And so, of course, that was really tough on us. Also, naturally, we at the time of the diagnosis, the outcome they gave was, we think that she'll probably live another 2 years tops, maybe. Somehow she ended up living another 11 years. And as much as that may seem like a miracle, at least on paper, honestly, it wasn't. Because so the cancer was not like one singular tumor that they just pulled out. It was more like it just spiderwebbed throughout different crevices of her brain. So they were
It
only able to
spread.
really, yeah, they were only able to scrape like a little bit, because anything more would have potentially gotten brain tissue. So even though they're with radiation therapy, they were able to at least cease the growth of the cancer, but it was still there, still doing damage on the brain itself. So after about 2 or 3 years, like she continually just was like her capabilities were decreasing more and more. She was less capable of walking, less capable of critical thought, less capable of holding a conversation as that went. So it really just kind of became this waiting game of over a decade of all of us just kind of, it's like sitting next to a bomb, knowing for sure it's going to go off. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, but it's going to happen anytime between the next like 2 seconds or the next 5 years or something, and you're shackled to it basically. Maybe it's a bit grim because but again, like it's a, so it was, so that was our life growing up, like just yep, mom's sick, and through no fault of her own, she was an invalid. She was not capable of being the mom that we needed her to be. And I sometimes will, in a cheeky way, kind of tell Brittany and tell other people who have been, where their trauma is based more on abuse. I'll kind of joke like, well, at least you've got someone that you can hate. I can't hate my mom. Do you know how much of a dick that would make me? So, because obviously, whatever anger I have, even if it's merited, it's not fair to direct it at her as a person, right?
But maybe you didn't always know that as a young kid as well. I wonder if
Mm-hmm.
you did go through periods of hating her, wishing she was different,
I,
resenting her.
I didn't, but of the two sisters, the older of the two did. There were times where
Mm.
she was just kind of like, she'd just be sitting there, just kind of cringing in on herself and like literally pulling her hair out of her head, saying like, I hate her so much." And my dad would set her aside and tell her, "No, it's not her, it's not your mommy that you hate. It's the cancer. It's the cancer you hate." You know, and I really appreciate that he did that, because he was it was not only was it redirecting it, but it was also validating, letting her know, yes, you're allowed to hate right now, because um and depending on what culture a person grows up in, it's so easy to like disregard hate. It's so easy to say, no, you shouldn't hate. Hate is, it's a bad feeling. Don't have bad feelings. And it's simply not realistic to just not feel certain things. I often, and you're gonna get a lot of my go-to metaphors here. I often will use these in sessions with people where I'll tell people, you have about as much control over your emotions as you do over the taste in food that you have. Okay. You have certain foods that you like and dislike, but you're not really sitting there actively deciding if you like it or dislike it. And sure, like there's certain foods that maybe have an acquired taste, but you didn't really, you chose to continue trying it, but you didn't necessarily choose to enjoy it. And so to further my point here, if you were eating a meal and I came in and said, "Chris, stop eating it," you are capable of stopping to eat it. Even though yes, I admit it's a weird request, but please just indulge the
Go on.
scenario here. You can stop eating it. You may think, why the hell is this guy telling me to stop eating? But you can stop. But what you cannot do is, you can't. If I came in and said, if I said, "Chris, stop enjoying the taste of your food," you're not going to suddenly go, "Oh, you're right. Ew, I don't like this anymore." That's just not how it works. So there's a difference between the emotions we have and the behaviors that we act on. Like you're allowed to, and that's one thing I really try to emphasize with my clients is the idea of give yourself permission to be angry, be
Well,
aware
anger
of.
has a place, right?
Yes, yeah. So being
And
angry, being sad, being filled with hate or whatever, like these all are emotions. We can't control the emotions. We can control the behaviors, but we don't. We owe it to ourselves and those around us to be mindful of the behaviors that we're going to act on. Um, but the emotions themselves, there's no need to justify them. They just are. Sometimes they may be irrational, but that's emotions for you. You don't really do yourself a favor ignoring it. Like even if so many times where someone's like, I'm so angry about this and I feel stupid. I shouldn't feel angry about this. And I tell them, well, let's start with the first step there. Just recognize I'm angry. Go with that first. Instead of coming up with reasons why you got to stop feeling angry, give yourself a moment, even if it is just literally 20, 30 seconds to just let yourself be angry, just to know it. And then once you feel it, once you give yourself some time to process it, you're probably going to be a little more level headed.
that's the therapist in you talking now.
Yes, very much so.
Um,
Sorry, it's hard not
no,
to go into
no.
not to listen to that.
Well, it's who you are now, and it's. I think it's what makes you both beautiful people, you and Brittany, because
Well, thank you.
you see it from your own side, but then also as a mentor side, you
Yes.
see it.
So back to the question you had originally asked, like, was it,
Well,
what was anger directed at my mom? Was hate directed? Not from me, from one of my sisters. Absolutely, yes.
I'm curious because, well, firstly, what do you think was the emotion that you felt, and secondly, for your sister who felt the anger and the hate, why do you think you two felt such different emotions? And I
My,
wonder if the
yeah,
age gap played a part. I wonder if your sister, being the eldest, probably had more time with your mother and good memories with your mother, and the loss of that made her angry. Is my guess, but
yeah.
I'm clutching at
My,
straws, maybe.
no, I don't, not at all. My dad had a metaphor that felt very applicable at the time. That he kind of compared the hurt we were each feeling to burns, first and second and third degree burns, where it seemed I was arguably, well, all of course were hurt. I was arguably less hurt just because I was a bit older and I had more memory of her, and perhaps and granted, again, I'm not going to say I wasn't hurt. I think I probably was. Um, not that I think I definitely was avoiding quite a bit of it and just kind of pushing through. I was the oldest sibling. I had to step up, and I was, kind of a co-parent in some minor ways. My sister, the next one was a, second degree burn. That one, when you're thinking in terms of burns, while it's not nearly as damaging as say a third degree, it is the most painful of the three. And then third degree, the most damage but the least pain because it is so damaging that you're not quite sure. And my other, so the youngest sister at that time, she had to be 3 or 4 years old, literally has no memories of mom when she was well. And she feels kind of bad because she says that the earliest memory that she does have of mom was this time where she was just kind of running out of the house. Like my sister was running out for something. I don't know. Maybe she saw a dog or something, or I forget what. And being as young as she was, my mom thought, oh goodness, like she's gonna, who knows where she's gonna go. She, follows after her. But this was, as I mentioned, her mobility was also suffering at this time. So she ended up falling down, and I think she did. It wasn't nothing major, but she did end up banging her head on a rock or something, and just gave herself a cut on the head there. So that sister, looks back and thinks, great, like my earliest memory of mom is one where I feel like it's my fault that she ran outside and got cut up. And, so that's just another edge of guilt that, she's dealing with. And, we've all had to deal with varying degrees of it. And that's something else I'm sure I'll get into later. The idea of like, feelings of shame and how shame almost always follows trauma, and the ways that shame very covertly twists our view of others and ourselves.
How it hangs around.
Yeah, it's sneaky. It's a sneaky son of a bitch, I'll tell you.